Hello and welcome back to the finals here of the RCQ during this MTG Invitational from the Ohio River Valley. I butchered that. If we were recording, I would reset and we would go again.
It's the Ohio Valley MTG Invitational weekend.
I'm on about the 20th hour of 2 days of work.
It's been long, but we are at the end, Todd. We only have one more match. And the good news is
one more match.
Both of our players here have qualified for the regional championship. They've done what they came here to do. That was the biggest prize of the day. And this was a 2-slot RCQ. So both players get to feel good about that. They are still playing for a good chunk of cash. It's $500 for first, $300 for second. So $200 on the line for this match. But honestly, when you get that qualification, a couple $100, if you lose it, doesn't feel nearly as bad as losing the finals in any other tournament.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So both these players here have played 6 rounds of Swiss. Both won their top 8 and top 4 match, and we're down to just 2 left. We got Gogar Yawgmoth on one side. We got 4-color You're in Control on the other. Both players are ready to go, so let's go and head down to the match, and we'll see who takes it down. This is the last match of the weekend. It's been a good weekend.
These are our number 1 and 2 overall seeds in the Swiss. So the player on the play has won every match in the top 8. Chase Swick is the 1 seed on 4-color control, going to take the play here. Trying to run a, clean sweep through this tournament at 7-0-1. He was the lone 4-0 that got paired down in round 5, had to play that round out, took it down. By virtue of that, takes the number 1 overall seed, and it has helped him through his quarterfinal and semifinal matches. Actually dispatched Max Turner on Zoo in the quarters and Josh Waddell on Tron, as we saw in our last match, a marathon semifinal. Kyle Hodor, your Yawgmoth player, on your right, defeating Jeff Hicks. We watched that match in the quarterfinals on Monterey Eldrazi. Very tight game, too, that he managed to sneak out. And actually defeated Kevin Huang on 4-color Elementals in the semis. So Hodor coming off a matchup, a very similar matchup here. Must like his chances, seeing as he just got the W.
Yeah, some notable differences, though. Chase Swick's version is playing 4 copies of Counterspell in the main deck. It has some Ephemerate plus Eternal Witness shenanigans to create these soft locks, but Kyle Hodor, no slouch when it comes to beating these 4-color URN decks. He's probably been doing it all day.
Yeah. So a good test for Swick here through this top 8. He beat the low to the ground aggro deck. He beat the deck that goes over the top of him. Ooh. This Yawgmoth deck can do both things.
All right, well, let's get to the action here because we got some hot and heavy stuff going on. Chase Swick on the play, fetches Spar Headquarters, goes for a turn 2 Wrenn 6, and the Birds of Paradise that Kyle Hodor jammed on turn 1 gets eaten for just 1 loyalty counter.
And this is the importance of being on the play in this matchup. When you're a Wrenn 6 deck against a mana creature deck, being able to tag that mana creature, super important. Geist looks to kill the Wrenn, but it looks like Swick does have the Solitude, so protects his own Wrenn. Does have to get rid of an Omnath to do it, but Wrenn 6, super important in this matchup, especially if Swick is land light. That means he's spell heavy, and the Wrenn will take care of the rest.
Yeah, and just wants to protect his Wrenn 6 because even though it's a 2-for-1, pitching the Solitude to exile the Strangerroot Geist, every tick up of the Wrenn 6 is plus a card by getting a land back. So especially if Chase Swick is light on lands, that Wrenn 6 could be hugely important for helping him develop over the next few turns of the game. Gets back in land, plays a Force for a turn, and jams it to Fairy Time Raveler. Probably going to see this just tick up and get a little bit more loyalty in preparation to bounce a mana creature or something similar on the following turn.
Maybe an abundant growth of Swick's own if he happens to draw one.
You want to know something that's kind of dumb?
What?
Teferi's like a human, right?
A wizard, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it can bounce Yawgmoth, even though it has protection from humans. That's what we call flavor fail.
And it looks like a very mana creature heavy draw from Hodor, which means they're going to get picked off by that Wrenn. So the Solitude play from Swick, incredibly important in this game. Because Hodor needed to clear that Wrenn to make way for these Ignoble Hierarchs. Instead, they're going to get munched on by Wrenn 6 and Teferi. So no extra mana for Hodor and no third land that turn, though he does draw it there with the Bloomin' Marsh.
Yeah, and you're seeing just how powerful this 4-card control deck can be in the early turns. Just all this interaction, these Planeswalkers flexing their muscles. We're seeing a main phase endurance here because of the claws on Teferi Time Raveler, and honestly, it's just baiting the counterspell because it's something that can actually challenge the Planeswalkers. Those ignoble hierarchs, they just look embarrassing in the face of stuff like Ren and 6.
Yeah. If you look at Hodar's hand, he's got that ignoble hierarch that was bounced by Teferi. Also looks like he has 2 copies of Chord of Calling, so losing all those mana creatures early means he doesn't really have the resources to cast those Chords of Calling. Chase Swick doing a great job of just picking Hodar's draw apart in the early game, and it really all came down to that turn 2 of Ren and 6, kill your mana creature on the play, and then had the Solitude for the follow-up Strangerroot Geist.
Solitude's any good? Yeah. Don't know if it's any good or not. I haven't seen it yet in play ever. Kyle Hodar goes for the endurance against counterspell. We're back to Chase Wick's way. He has the ability to plus on the Ren and 6, get another land back, continuing to play these big spells. Looks like maybe an Yawgmoth here.
Yep, and he's got an expressive iteration back, so could easily just play a fetch land here, get up to 5 mana, play an iteration with 3 floating, and just
gonna gain some life too. Yawgmoth really gonna show off here. Generating a bunch of mana, drawing a card, gaining some life, and I feel like Kyle Hodar is just getting systematically dismantled. Ren and 6 can still pick up and get a land. Teferi can plus. We have expressive iteration. We can hard cast anything, or we can just use that mana and bring Yorion to hand in preparation for something huge next turn. I feel like the game is already over, and I feel like Kyle Hodar's body language is signifying essentially the same thing. Wouldn't be surprised to see a fairly early concession here.
Yeah, this is a dominating performance in game 1 from Chase Swick. Everything lining up for him. He had an excellent curve, and his curve matched up very well against Hodar's draw. And looks to put this one away early, unlike his previous game 1. It was put away late.
Well, it wasn't his fault. The Tron player just kept playing haymakers, and he kept having to answer them.
It's okay. I'm not bitter.
Not bitter? Why would you be bitter? Get better. Not bitter. All right, fetch, trigger the Yawgmoth. Gonna gain 4 mana. The 5th is with the Snow-Covered Island. We're gonna see if the Teferi pluses or the Ren and 6 pluses. Both of them gonna go up. Gets back a land. Let's see what he does with that 4 mana floating. Gonna buy Yorion and probably let that other mana burn and says go.
Yeah, doesn't want to play the iteration there when he's already made his land drop and potentially miss out on that card advantage.
Yeah, plus a lot of the cards in his deck are like removal spells, and if you play an expressive iteration with no creatures on the other side, it's pretty bad. But Kyle Hodar sees the writing on the wall, gonna go ahead and pack it up for game 1. Ross is gonna go ahead and take a look at their sideboards and give you some insight into how he thinks either player is gonna sideboard. But before we do that, let's check out our sponsors. G Fuel Energy Formula, thank you for sponsoring the event and being a sponsor for Apex Gaming in general. You can get G Fuel in powder form or in cans or bottles. Wings, etc., Grill and Pub, thanks for the good food and the good fun. We'll be there in a little while, hopefully. If this match concludes as quickly as that game 1 did, we'll be in business. LuxuryPlaystyle.com makes premium tokens. You can go to LuxuryPlaystyle.com right now and place an order for some of those sweet tokens and flex on your friends and your play groups, your F&Ms. Treasure token coming soon. The treasure token is quite cool, especially if you're a dockside extortionist enthusiast. Say that 3 times fast.
Dockside extortionist enthusiast. Dockside extortionist enthusiast. Dockside extortionist enthusiast.
Not fast enough. Doesn't count.
Wow. 20 hours in, and I just did that very cleanly.
Yeah, it was pretty clean.
I got no credit. Okay, let's look at some sideboards. I've got Kyle Hodar's list in front of me. Hodar, I should say, not Hodor. Oof, it's late. I see 3 Endurance, 2 Force of Vigor, a Crime Punishment, a Scavenging Ooze, a Dranith Magistrate, a Kataki War's Wage, an Outland Liberator, Magus of the Moon, 2 Thoughtseize, a Necromentia, and a Veil of Summer. I like the Thoughtseizes, kind of. Like, Thoughtseize typically has not been good in this matchup. They have too much card advantage, so maybe I don't really like Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I think Thoughtseize is better against the more decks with more unique effects, but every single thing in this 4-color deck just feels like it replaces itself, and they want to be hit with Thoughtseize. The more you cast Thoughtseize against them, the slower the game gets, and that usually advantages someone who's playing a ton of Planeswalkers and interaction and card draw.
But it can be beneficial for the Yawgmoth deck that is trying to clear away clear the way for a big turn.
Sure.
So maybe you be more disciplined with the Thoughtseize, hold it for your Yawgmoth turn, clear away that Solitude or that counter spell.
Right.
So I think they're good, but you got to use them very specifically.
Yep.
I kind of like the Drannith Magistrate. It stops Rebound and Ephemerate, and it stops the Expressive Iteration Exile. It doesn't seem like enough. But, maybe you want it. Maybe it's better than, some other card in your deck.
Can you even cast it outside of the birds and the Quarter Calling? I feel like that's a desperation sideboard card, right?
Yeah. I don't know how Hodar feels about the matchup.
Maybe goes for some Hail Marys.
And then Magus of the Moon is also interesting. You're playing against a 4-color deck. They do have Abundant Growth and 3 basics with a pile of fetch lands. But you can Magus of the Moon as early as turn 2 with your Accelerants, and you can also Eldritch Evolution those Accelerants into the Moon. And that might get you, a quick win. Doesn't cost you very much to put it in your deck. That said, Chase Swick does have 2 copies of Lightning Bolt and 2 copies of Unholy Heat, and can exile to evoke the Solitudes and Fury. So has plenty of answers for the Magus. So I kind of shocked myself out of that one.
I do that all the time in commentary. I'm like, I think this might be good. Actually, it's bad.
Yeah, so not a ton that I like here from the Yawgmoth sideboard. May just present something pretty close to the same 60. As far as Chase Swick, we saw a sideboard last round. He's got that Yorion Companion, the Obsidian Charmar that was so good in Game 3 of his semifinal match, 3 Veil of Summer, 2 Supreme Verdict, a Mystical Dispute, a Flusterstorm, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Chalice of the Void, 2 Endurance. Once again, not a ton that I like. The Endurances could be okay because you have some red removal, so you can target those Undying creatures and then Endurance with the trigger on the stack. But not great. Verdict is maybe okay because your opponent, you want to keep your opponent's battlefield in check, especially when they're a Quarter Calling deck. So I kind of like Supreme Verdict. Veil of Summer would be good if your opponent had more than 2 Thoughtseizes. That just doesn't seem like enough to want to bring in Veil. Especially because you're not going to consistently just be able to cycle it. Because the Yawgmoth deck doesn't have many black spells.
That's true. Mostly it's a green creature deck and just has Yawgmoth at the top end with a couple other black creatures to tutor for.
And you could talk me into the 1 Flusterstorm with Eldritch Evolution and Quarter Calling in the other deck. But
those are extremely important cards, and Flusterstorm very regularly counters them.
Yeah, so... I'm looking at these Supreme Verdicts more and more, and there are 2 Dress Downs in the Swick's main. So access to that kind of combo where you can go on your end step, Dress Down, untap with it still in play, Verdict you, no one dying on any of your creatures.
Right.
That could be a really powerful combination for him.
All right, looks like both players here are done sideboarding. We're shuffling up and drawing our opening hands for game number 2. Cal Hodar with Black-Green Yawgmoth, down a game, going to be on the play here. Does have a Magus of the Moon in his opening hand. It looks like he also has an Ignoble Hierarch, maybe. It's hard to tell.
I could also see Magus being a card you only bring in on the play, where you're really just trying to cheese them on turn 2.
Yep, and it turns off their first fetch land is usually golden, but their second fetch land is usually bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has a 1-mana Accelerant, so that Magus is a turn 3 play. There is a Wall of Roots there. He's definitely mulling this one over.
All right, I think he's going to send it back. Takes a look at the top 5. Throws it back. No, it wasn't good. So once he saw the top 5, decides the mull. Chase Swick looks like he's gonna mull it.
Yeah, also takes a little peeker.
Yeah.
Are you a peeker?
Sometimes. I for a long time I was not a peeker because I was trying to be disciplined. But now I peek for the stories, the funsies, right? I feel confident in my decision making process. I don't feel like I have a lot of bias when it comes to that kind of thing. And also I think I keep a wider range of hand than a lot of people, especially on the draw. So
yeah, I actually went the opposite direction. I was a peeker for many years, and now I'm a no peeker.
We all become no peekers at some point, and then when we're old, we become peekers again.
Well, I'm pretty old.
You ain't that old. All right. Both players here are going to draw another 7 here, looking at a potential 6-card hand after putting one back, but may go down to 5. We'll see what they decide to do. Cal Hodar taking a gander, thinking about it. Has the Birds of Paradise and some lands. Wonder if he has any payoffs.
Wonder if he has I think that's an Eldritch Revolution that's going to the bottom.
Okay.
So maybe not confident in a Magus of the Moon.
At least not confident enough to, go all in on it on a 6-card hand.
Yeah. Especially if you don't have access to basics there and you got to get rid of the bird, the Magus might screw you too. So you got to have a specific land draw in order to get that to work.
All right, we're ready for game number 2. Both players keeping their 6. Birds of Paradise, the first play for Cal Hodar. And we're over to Chase Swick.
So I see a quarter calling in Kyle's hand. That's a good one. But
Oh, bird down. Bolt the bird, chats. Bolt the bird.
in this 4-color control deck, very happy to trade resources early. The Yawgmoth deck needs lots of creatures for that cord to work and for Yawgmoth to be effective. So with both players mulliganing to 6, I think that's an Elder Evolution off the top.
All right, and Strangler Geist is the play. That's going to come down thanks to that Twilight Mire filtering double green, and we're going to attack for 2. And it does have Undying, so if Chasewick wants to kill, it's going to need to be an exile, or he's going to have to 2-for-1 himself.
Yeah, Prismatic Ending here I think would be pretty devastating for Hodor. That would leave the rest of his hand pretty useless.
And it looks like we have a main phase fetch, so this could be a Renin 6, could be the Prismatic Ending that you predicted. If it's Prismatic Ending and it exiles the Strangleroot Geist, Hodor low on resources with a Court of Calling kind of rotting in his hand.
Yeah, even a Renin 6 would be very good here. Just plus it, it's out of range of the Geist. Hope there's not a second one.
Hit your land drops.
Yeah.
Have a few laughs.
So there's basic forest. The Eldritch Evolution, if the Geist lives, that Eldritch Evolution next turn could do some cool stuff. It could get Magus of the Moon, and you just start, the beatdown plan. It could get a second Strangleroot Geist if there's a Renin 6 and you want to attack it down, and just, spread your battlefield worth of creatures. Chasewick is at 15, so, turning that Geist into a second Geist would give you 5 power in play. That's a pretty fast clock.
Yep. All right, well.
I think we've got an Abundant Growth.
Abundant Growth on the Forest. Let's see if he has a 1-mana card to play. Gonna pass turn, kind of setting up for white mana, trying not to take too much damage from his own stuff.
If I'm Kyle Hodor, I'm pretty psyched at that, though maybe there's the one Flusterstorm in hand.
Maybe.
Looks like Birds of Paradise was the draw. So I think the hand there is land, birds, evolution, and cord. So I like going for the mana efficient play on the evolution. Looks like Undying and evolution are both fine.
All right, well, the Strangleroot Geist dies, comes back with the +1/+1 counter on it from the Undying. Eldritch Evolution gonna tutor for a creature that costs 4 less and then exile itself. So it's not gonna go to the graveyard, but we're gonna be able to go get Yawgmoth, the deck's namesake if he wants, or we can get this powerful Planeswalker in Grist and really start churning and put some pressure on Chase in a way that might not be able to be easily handled.
I don't think there's a Prismatic Ending there because the Strangleroot Geist lived, so the Geist or the Grist should live as well.
Yeah. Now, what would be really cool is if this Grist hit another Grist, it would actually trigger again. But it just hits a Court of Calling, so we're just gonna get the 1 insect. Yeah. And eventually, though, we're gonna make enough food for this Court of Calling to actually do some damage.
Yeah, Grist is great at fueling Court of Calling, an underrated underrated part of its role in the deck. And Chasewick, honestly, he's been, running through this tournament roughshod and has looked great doing it. The one thing he hasn't looked great at doing is drawing Prismatic Ending.
Yeah.
Never had it.
Is he playing this before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, 80 card deck, you gotta get punished a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and that Boseiju, that signals a land-like hand.
Yeah, playing it instead of holding it to blow up something for sure.
You would have played almost any other land in the deck instead of that Boseiju. Thoughtseize gets milled with that Grist, telling us that indeed Kyle did bring them in.
All right, we got a Zulaport Cutthroat come down. That's going to make stuff like Wrath Effects or even Fury potentially more dangerous because the drain effect from the Zulaport Cutthroat all triggers at the same time.
We're on the beatdown plan. That's 4 damage coming across. Going to bring Chasewick to 8.
Yep.
Out of Supreme Verdict here would actually have Chase taking 5 damage from the Cutthroat.
Oh, but he has the Dress Down. That's going to remove the ability from the Zulaport Cutthroat. If he has another white source and a Supreme Verdict, he's going to clean up the whole side of the battlefield minus the Grist, and that's going to make sure the Zulaport Cutthroat does no damage.
Oh, do we have it?
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I see an Eladamri's Call as the draw for turn, so that's no help.
All right, well, that's Flutterstrand cracked main phase, so he's got something here for 4 mana. It could be an Omnath, but the Dress Down does keep it from drawing a card, so it might not be that good. If he has Supreme Verdict, that's going to clean up the whole side of the battlefield. Yeah. The Grist is scary, though. A graveyard full of creatures could result in the Grist actually killing him with the ultimate at some point in the near future.
Yeah, especially on only 7 life. I expect this to get the basic planes, even if there is no Supreme Verdict, with Boseiju, Steam Vents, and an Abundant Growth land as the other 3 on the battlefield, and there it is.
Okay, let's see if he has the Supreme Verdict. Has access to a few this weekend, and it's going to come up gangbusters here with the Dress Down, and Ross called it, predicting it from the future.
from the past.
Predicting the future from the past.
Which is the only way to do
In
it.
the present. Right now, we are casting that Supreme Verdict. That's going to blow everything up. What a sequence from Chase Swick.
Get him out of here.
Now, Supreme Verdict, no triggers from the Zulaport Cutthroat, and Kyle Hodar, he's just shaking his head. So much stuff happened.
And
And
he's just got the cord in hand, I think, and
not even an extra green to do it. But the token from Grist is green, so he could potentially cord for 1 or 2. 2 if he draws a mana source, 1 if he doesn't.
I'd be perfectly happy making a token, playing a 4th land here, and getting another Strangerootgeist.
I would too, because then the ultimate on the Grist next turn threatens lethal.
Yeah, I think that was a Blooming Marsh, so the worst land possible.
Is tapped. Oh, it hit a Grist. That's
Oh,
2.
we get to do it anyway.
That's 2.
That was clutch.
All right, here we go again. 2 tokens from the Grist. We're going to play a Blooming Marsh tapped. We're going to Quarter Calling for 2 probably. Go get Strangerootgeist and attack for 2, putting Chase Wick down to 5 life.
Oh, you're the beatdown. Yeah, I think he's counting his graveyard to see how threatening that ultimate is. And
Pretty
he's going to
threatening.
do the math and think, yeah, Strangerootgeist is good here.
Decides to pass turn. Gonna go for the end of turn Quarter Calling. Maybe he has different plans.
Oh, I wanted a Strangerootgeist there, and there's a Solitude now.
Yeah, that could be problematic, especially if Hodar decides to go for an attack. We could see Solitude come down, eat something, and gain 3 life and get out of range of that Grist. Fetch land is the land for turn, though. That's Wooded Foothills. Scary to take more damage. That Grist ultimate looming. Doesn't go for the Quarter Calling. Maybe he's looking to go for a Jarl's Messenger in some weird spot.
Yeah. Could potentially get Messenger and then sack it to Grist, even if you have to target your own creature. That's only 4.
All right, gonna count the graveyard again. See if there's 7 creatures in there. If he's got 7. Now the Grist that's in the graveyard also counts as a creature, and we've been through a lot of threats this game, but many of them were exiled or tokens. So looks like we're just gonna plus the Grist. Noble Hierarch is the mill.
So not Quarter Calling finds anything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we want to try to get a Yawgmoth.
Yeah, maybe. I don't hate it. You know, if he's going to take his time with it, might as well. Doesn't even attack with the insect tokens, because now a Grist ultimate looks like it might be lethal next turn, especially with this fetch.
And if you're Chase Swick, the Quarter Calling at this point might as well be face up on the table.
Yeah. Well, this Wooded Foothills has to get a tapped land unless there is a mountain in the deck, but I don't believe there is.
There is no basic mountain in Swick's list, so yeah, this is either a tap land or 2 more damage.
Yeah.
He decides to take the damage.
He's going to go for the damage because his plan is to go for the Solitude and then attack to gain life and maybe try to pressure the Grist. Unfortunately for him, that is going to leave him vulnerable to this Quarter Calling for Yawgmoth, and 2 sacks of the tokens is going to kill the Solitude, prevent the life gain, and then without Prismatic Ending next turn, that Grist is going to kill him.
Yeah, this is rough.
In response, we're going to cord for 4. That's going to get Yawg. And we're going to draw some cards, kill the Solitude, and then Grist is going to threaten lethal next turn.
Okay.
It resolves.
And if you're Kyle Hodar, you can just pass the turn, or you got to sack the token that Solitude is targeting.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I think it would be a smart choice.
No reason not to. You get to draw a card, shrink the Solitude.
You could gain a life if you're really afraid, but
yeah,
the life is less important than the body, I think. All right, so we're gonna shrink it with 1. We're gonna draw a card, go to 19. Yawgmoth doing some crazy stuff sometimes.
Yeah, let's get a -1/-1 counter on that Solitude.
Yep. All right, now we can kind of pass a turn and kind of wait, but gonna go ahead and just do it now.
It doesn't want to run afoul of Ephemerate. Okay, right. So I actually like doing it now before Chase can untap.
All right, Chase is gonna untap. Only a 4 life, needs Prismatic Ending for the Grist and something else. Let's see if he can find it.
I think that was an Ephemerate he just drew. So tight play from Kyle Hodar, looks to be getting paid off.
I don't think he has a way out here. Wait and see. Can we get Grist on the screen real quick? I believe the ultimate's at 5, so even a lightning bolt on it doesn't do anything. And yeah, Chase Wick just going to go ahead and pack it in here. So we're going to have a game number 3 in the finals of this RCQ. Both players already qualified for DreamHack, but pride and money on the line in a game 3 after a marathon day of Magic. It's been a fun one.
Yeah, has to come down to one final game here. Chase Wick going to be on the play. Looks like he's making some changes here in sideboarding. Maybe something about the play draw changes how he wants to approach it. Hodar also looks to be making some changes. I think that might be the Magus of the Moon coming out.
Yeah.
Saw that on the play, gets significantly worse on the draw.
Yeah, and you also don't want to just draw it in your opening hand. We saw him mulligan and put it on the bottom. Had the potential to go for like a turn 2 Eldritch Evolution, but, you know, just never felt like it was going to be that worth it.
Yeah. And impressive stuff in that second game from Hodar, winning through a Supreme Verdict that was set up with the dress down.
Yeah. That Grist just showed off, though, you know?
Yeah. Grist definitely the MVP of the game. It was able to both, pressure Swick and generate the necessary resources from a resource-light position to make Court of Calling into a relevant card. The Court ultimately finding that Yawgmoth that was the nail in the coffin in the game. Normally, when you're able to use your removal spells, kill their first couple threats, Court of Calling is easy to strand in your opponent's hand. That's one of the weaknesses of the card, but Grist coming through, ensuring that was not going to be the outcome in our second game of the finals.
All right, well, we are preparing here for game number 3 in the finals of the RCQ on day 2 of the Ohio Valley MTG Invitational weekend here at the Apex Gaming home store in Caldwell, Ohio. The circuit they ran throughout the first 6 months of this year culminated in our invitational finals yesterday, where 3 Cascade decks made the top 4, and we have a completely opposite story today with no Cascade decks even in the top 8, very few even in the field. So this has been a much different day today than yesterday, but I think that really just speaks to the diversity that Modern has to offer.
Yeah, we had 8 different archetypes in our top 8 yesterday. Today it was 6 or 7 different archetypes, depending upon how you differentiate between 4-color Omnath and 4-color Elementals. Mm-hmm. Along with several cool rogue decks with Mono Red Eldrazi, Jeskai Stoneblade, and Domain Zoo in the top 8 today. So yeah, a lot of different decks in the field, and that is well represented in our elimination rounds of both tournaments.
If you want more information on how to qualify for the Season 2 Invitational, just want you to know that we're going to have more information on that relatively soon, so make sure to follow Apex Gaming on all socials. We'll post our links in the chat for you, so you can follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, where we have our store up and running. We have singles for you. We have tournaments coming down the pipeline, and we'll have more information on Season 2 of our Invitational series coming real soon.
Okay, final game. Who will join our Invitational champion, Randy Ubing, as, a tournament winner on the weekend?
Big thanks to Apex Gaming for bringing Ross Merriam and myself from Roanoke, Virginia, making us feel welcome, making us feel at home, making sure everything runs smoothly. They've been a dream to work with all weekend. Just want to say thanks to both Kyle and Taryn for that. People in this area also extremely nice and kind, and we're ready to go.
And we're off.
All right, turn 1 Abundant Growth here. Chase Wick going to draw a card, fix his mana a bit.
Look on the play, so it's going to, early on come down to, does he have the turn 2 Ren and 6? Because Hodar really, can't really do anything to avoid it. The mana creatures are very important for the Yawgmoth deck.
Right, but may choose to actually play something like Yawgmoth here, given the option, because of how strong Ren and 6 can be.
Yeah, I think I see a Prismatic Ending in Chase Swick's hand for the first time in maybe ever.
And, well, we only saw the 1 or whatever during the entire Tron game 1, All right, turn 1 Ignoble Hierarch from Kyle Hodar, the powerful addition to Modern, basically the polar opposite of a Noble Hierarch. It's ignoble. Another Abundant Growth here.
Chase Swick, again, opting to enchant a fetch land with Abundant Growth rather than fetch it, trying to preserve his life total, but that means any future Ren and 6s might not have any food. Unsure if there's another fetch land in hand.
Yeah, I imagine that there is, and the life total matters a bit. And plus, whenever the Yorian pops off, you can always just move the Abundant Growth around and then fetch later. So no harm, no foul for the most part, but obviously needs to keep that in mind if he's going to play those Abundant Growths on the fetch lands. Turn 2 Walrus from Hodar, not a super good one here because it doesn't actually apply pressure, but can make a mana immediately and play another Ignoble Hierarch.
I'm a big fan of that turn. Just keep deploying your mana. Make sure you have resources. We can start having some really threatening turns starting next turn.
Yep. All right, Misty Rainforest is a land for Chase Wick. See if he has anything to do on his turn or if he wants to pass. Could put Yorn in hand, maybe cycle Triumph, maybe play a removal spell. We'll just have to wait and see. Tries to crack the Misty. Gonna go looking for land. Kyle Hodar here, really hoping that the play here is something inconsequential. More development. Gonna try to get something like Grist or maybe a Yawgmoth onto the battlefield next turn if he's lucky.
I could see this being a Teferi, bounce the Ignoble.
Sorry we're being so quiet, chat. There aren't a whole lot of people left in the store, and we are relatively close to the feature match area. We do have a soundproof wall between us, but sometimes if we start hollering, they're able to hear a little bit here and there, so we're trying to be careful to maintain the integrity of the tournament. We're going to put Yorn in hand. That's got to be best case scenario for Hodar. You have to imagine on turn 3, just putting Yorn in hand has got to be a dream.
I do, however, see a Supreme Verdict in Chase Swick's hand, so I think the plan there is to catch up from this ineffectual turn 3 with the Supreme Verdict to sweep away all these mana creatures.
All right, well, Kyle Hodar does have Magus of the Moon in hand, it looks like, but choosing not to play it, going to go ahead and play Grist.
I mean, Magus affects Hodar's battlefield more than it affects Swick's.
That's true. That's true. It's just interesting to see because we talked about it as far as last game is concerned about not being that effective. And here with the 2 Abundant Growths, you know, those are on the same layer as Blood Moon, so they kind of do the same thing, but in reverse.
Yeah, so I do love the Grist play, though. That's going to be another effective card to help Hodar play through this Supreme Verdict. Yeah. Which I suspect will be Swick's play this turn. Clear away all that mana. Will cost him 4 life in Zulaport Cutthroat triggers. No Dress down this time, but with 18 life there, he's got some to work with.
Yeah, not nearly as under the gun as he was last game. The Grist, though. The Grist is the big story here because even after the Supreme Verdict, it's going to stick around and create pressure and threaten the ultimate in a few turns. So,
and Swick has already used one of his prismatic endings. You know, given how little he's drawn it over the course of these matches, I've got to wonder if all 4 of them are still in.
Yeah, maybe not.
I would assume they are.
Yeah, they seem pretty good at exiling those String Root guys and things, and we know about the Grist, so I would assume he's just getting a little unlucky. 4 creatures down, Zulaport Cutthroat going to trigger 4 times, a little Brain and Drain, and then Grist is going to get to untap and try to hard carry for the rest of this game. It's going to be hard in the face of all this virtual and actual card advantage from Chase Swick.
But, you know, Grist is also a lot of virtual and actual card advantage, so...
That's true. Well, we found a combo piece, not the greatest in the world, in Essence Warden. Can gain some life and make sure that we don't get cheesed out by some double striking Furies or some flying Yorians or something. The Grist here ticks up, mills over Jarros Messenger. That's unfortunate because that is one of the combo pieces in the deck, but unable to cast it, so a dead draw if he had drawn it next turn.
Yeah. The real problem is that Magus of the Moon hanging in the hand, doing absolutely nothing. Yeah. We got a full grip from Swick. He untaps at 14 life. The only real threat is that Grist, so if he can answer that, and this is another Verdict.
Yeah, another Verdict just to clean up the 2 creatures in play, but doesn't make any headway against the Grist in play. You know, didn't have the 5th untapped mana, I guess. Maybe just wants to go ahead and clear the board a little bit so that he can play... the Yori next turn unfettered, and also protects himself from Quarter Clawing a little bit by chewing up a little bit of the food on the table.
Yeah, makes sense. Could very likely see the Yori next turn, draw a couple extra cards. Also has an Eladamri's Call in his hand, so that could find, say, a Fury.
Or an Eternal Witness and get back the Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
Has plenty of answers. Needs to find something to answer Grist. Grist continuing to apply pressure. Counterspell in hand. Not sure how good it is going to be here.
Swick might now be incentivized to try to hold that up. Not sure if he has plays that are effectual that allow him to hold that 2 mana.
All right, he's tapping 5. This looks like maybe a Yorian turn to blink 2 Abundant Growths. Maybe thinking better of it. Trying to figure out the optimal play for the turn. And he's going to go ahead and Solitude and Ignoble Hierarch in the main phase. No power, no life. 3/2 lifelinker now.
You can see Swick's approach to this matchup. He is trying hard to limit the amount of material that Kyle Hodar keeps on the battlefield, and I think that is the way to play against Yawgmoth. So very aggressively using his removal. Kind of one of those matchups where outside of the namesake card, the other bodies are largely interchangeable.
All right, well, fourth mana drawn from Kyle Hodar, even after getting that Noble Hierarch blown up. This is going to allow him to unlock the Yawgmoth in hand, and that combined with Grist. Making a token is going to generate 2 bodies to sacrifice to kill Solitude and draw 2 cards, and perhaps give Kyle Hodar enough food to come back into this game. He's been systematically dismantled. 2 Supreme Verdicts so far, swept his board multiple times, and now fighting through all this interaction, going to try to buy himself some time and get back into the game.
And you got to figure, given how aggressive Swick was with the Solitude, that he has another answer back to deal with a potential Yawgmoth.
Yeah, I agree.
I know I said you want to use those, removal aggressively, but you always have, that's outside of Yawgmoth. Always got to leave yourself an out to that one.
All right, well, we're going to main phase this again, more than likely, to play around the Solitude. So we're going to draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and kill the Solitude.
Want to play around that Ephemerate.
That's what I meant. I apologize.
Good big blowouts there, especially because you only have the 2 other creatures. If you had a 3rd creature to sacrifice, you could just respond to the Ephemerate.
Right.
But there, it would have been an unbelievable blowout.
All right, back to Chase Swick. Still has Yorn in hand. Can play that, blink some stuff, draw some more cards. Has a lot of card advantage, but needs to translate that into onboard pressure to deal with the Grist or answers to deal with the Yawgmoth.
Just drew a 2nd counterspell, which is awkward because he's a little light on mana. Didn't make a 6 land drop last turn. Doesn't seem like he's going to be making it this turn. So really difficult for him to play to the battlefield while holding up mana for that counterspell.
I believe he has an expressive iteration in hand, so could cast that and start digging for some more mana or some more answers to the Yawgmoth. I know he has Yorion as well. Won't allow him to develop mana, but could just draw 2 cards off the Abundant Grist. Maybe he wants to be a little more greedy with it.
I think he wants to find an answer to this Yawgmoth. Might have left himself with the defenses down.
Yeah, fair play. Top 3 cards. Looks like an Eldamri's Call, a Wrenn and 6, and an Unknown.
So we can take the Eladamri's Call and the Wrenn, use Wrenn to get a land, then use Eladamri's Call to get a Solitude, and Solitude Evoke to deal with the Yawgmoth.
Yeah, I like that sequence. That's going to allow for an answer to most of the things in play, but the Grist is still looming.
The Grist is looming, and hopefully he has another white card to... It looks like he has a 2nd Eladamri's Call. So probably pitching the other Eladamri's Call.
And holding the Yorion.
Yeah, the Yorion being able to draw a bunch of cards. I kind of like, though. Maybe there's something he wants to do with the call.
All right, we're going to tick up. I assume there's a fetch in the graveyard. We're going to be able to use that. We have to fetch shot down to 11. That's going to put us in a little bit of danger from the Grist Ultimate over time. Unclear exactly how many creatures in the graveyard. Grist keeps milling over them, though. Multiple gotten hit with Supreme Verdict. You got to imagine it's pretty close.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, in that 5-6 range. A lot of the creatures that have died have been tokens from the Grist.
Sure.
But there have been several mana creatures. We're definitely starting to get up there. Fortunately for Swick, the Solitude will exile Yawgmoth, so no additional creature added to the graveyard there. And it's really, I think, for Swick's mindset, you feel okay if you get to untap and you're not facing down another really big threat in addition to the Grist. If it's just some mediocre creatures and you get to Yori and draw a couple cards and have the counterspell up, you feel like you should be able to turn this game around.
Maybe even use Wrenn and 6 to pick off a mana creature or something,
Yeah.
The thing now, though, is that Kyle Hodar did get to draw 2 cards last turn and a fresh draw for turn, so even though that Magus of the Moon is kind of rotting in hand, might be able to cobble together some pressure here.
So Swick does decide that he'd rather have Yorion than the Eldamri's Call. So now his hand is Yorion, Counterspell.
Passing his turn.
See how good Swick's hand is. We know about that Magus of the Moon that is uncastable without a mana creature on the battlefield. So,
all right, Hodar draws, goes for a Dryad Arbor.
That one's not so good.
Nope, but it's a 1/1. It's a free elf. It's okay.
Aaron said he thinks there's 6 creatures in Kyle's graveyard.
Okay. We have an estimated count for the Grist, and the estimate is 6. Grist used to take out this Wrenn. I like that. Your opponent's a little land light. Yeah, it does add another creature to the graveyard, so that should put us about 7.
Yeah, and could have sacrificed the Young Wolf, but instead choosing to sack the Dryad Arbor to grow the graveyard a bit. Plus, if Young Wolf gets hit with a removal spell, it still gets to come back. Hodar doesn't know exactly how many Supreme Verdicts are in the deck, so wants to make sure that maybe it has a creature that can stick around through another sweeper effect.
Yeah. Dealing with that Ren is actually huge because it means Yorion leaves Swick with only 1 mana on tap, so you cannot Yorion with the counterspell up.
Root to Fairy Time Rattler for the turn. Can use that to bounce Yawgmoth. Can also use it to bounce an Abundant Growth to draw an additional card. That's what he wants to do.
That's what I'm inclined to do. I want the extra card, but
Well, wants to
Swick
keep the
disagrees.
material at a minimum. Has Counterspell at the ready now off these 2 Abundant Growths. The Grist is there. It's not lethal yet, but it's pretty darn close.
Potentially a misstep there, leaving the Temple Garden up instead of the Ketria Triome. That means that Swick will not have access to double counterspell should he need it. Now, I think it's very unlikely he gets punished, but something to think about.
Yep. Maybe he has different plans in mind. Maybe not even worried about casting 2 counterspells, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, given Hodar's play the last turn, I don't think his...
Going for an ultimate. I don't think this is lethal, but this is a big shock of damage. 1, 2. It counts itself
3,
when it's in the graveyard. Maybe it is enough.
5, 6,
7,
7,
8, 9, 8.
Is that 8?
8. Okay.
Yeah, so our estimated count was right because of the Dryad Arbor was 7, and the Grist made 8 because activating it put Grist in the graveyard where it does count as a creature, and you don't check until the ability goes to resolve.
I think he had another Grist, so he wanted to go for the ultimate and then play another Grist, but he's just going to get bit by this counterspell here, and that's going to keep him alive. He's at 3 life, facing down a creature, but Yawgmoth out of juice, and we'll see if Chase Swick can come back here and win this game from just 3 life.
Oh, that's an Omnath.
Is that good?
I think we want to go Omnath and just gain some life here. Still have another counterspell up. You can use it because that lets you effectively use the fetch land. Whereas before it would have been awkward to try to use it because, well, yeah, the forest is already on the battlefield. So that would have put us in order to be an untapped land is 3 damage. So you can't do that.
No, but he can just go Omnath, draw a card. He can, if he draws a land for turn or off the Omnath, he can play it, gain 4, pass the turn.
A land off the Omnath would be absurd because then you can play the Orient too.
Yeah. Now we can fetch for a tap land, gain 4 life, go up to 6, and then still have counterspell up.
Yep. Things looking good here for Chase Swick. Like I said, on that one turn, he needed to not be facing down another huge threat. And the turn for Hodar was just Yawgmoth and Dryad Arbor, and use the Dryad Arbor to destroy the Wren. That was good enough for Swick, I think, to establish control of this game. And now the Omnath really cements it.
All right, we're going to crack this Flutterstrand to go get the island. That's going to bury the Abundant Growth, so the Yorn's going to be a little less effective, but I think that's okay. It's going to put us to 6, and now the Wooded Foothills can be cracked to gain 4 more life on the opponent's turn, or it can be used to generate mana to cast the Yorion and still hold up Counterspell.
So potentially valuing a little bit of tempo here, getting the Orient down quickly versus waiting a turn and getting an extra card out of the trigger.
Yeah. I think you have to fetch shock with the Wooded Foothills, though, so it's probably not worth it. All right, passing the turn. 1 card in for Hodar when it's a Magus of the Moon, uncastable without one of those red creatures, or red producing mana creatures.
It seems strange to me to do it that way. Well, you could just crack the Wooded Foothills and get a tap land and use the 2 Abundant Growth lands to cast a counterspell. And then still have them in play for this Yorion.
Well, that's why they call you the Math Doctor.
Maybe there's something about Wooded Foothills and the lands it can find. That could be an issue.
All right, Expressive Iteration is the play. We're going to look at the top 3, find a Prismatic Ending. I can take care of the Yawgmoth. I'm not sure if it's necessary. Might want to hold on to it. It's like a Wren and 6 somewhere in there. What I'm really looking for here is to generate a little more life and a little bit of mana, and then I want to blink that Omnath so that we get an extra card and a potentially extra 4 life on the opponent's turn.
So 4 life back up to 10. So now we're out of the danger zone. Looks like a Boseiju put into the hand.
Yeah, I think this one might be all but wrapped up. It's going to take a lot for Kyle Hodar to get out of this, and I think Swick actually has another counterspell in hand. So Wall of Protection backed by this powerful 4-drop from M20, I believe. No. One of the Zendikar says. Whatever. It's Omnath. You know what it does. It's brutal. Got a book worth of text on it. I have a test tomorrow on all the text. I make sure I read it multiple times.
It's okay. We'll study more tonight.
All right. Prismatic Ending to hand. We're going to probably play it on the Yawgmoth. Oh, no, we're just going to cast the 4 floating. We're going to cast the Yorion. We're going to blink Abundant Growth, Teferi, Omnath. And with the Wooded Field still in play, we can gain 4 more life. And it looks like we are going to tap a little bit differently here.
I think he's thinking about Prismatic Ending the Yawgmoth at this point. Decides against it.
Okay.
Says, I don't need to do that.
All right. Still has Counterspell up now thanks to the Snow-Covered Island and now the Abundant Growth. Going to draw 2. 1 from the Omnath and 1 from the Abundant Growth. And passing of the turn with a Gritful, including a Counterspell. Clawing back in the game and easily taking over after a stumble from Hodar. Big Grist Ultimate wasn't quite enough to do it. And another Wall Root. Not very threatening.
Yeah. And then it's just the Lonely Maggots of the Moon in Hodar's hand. That card brought in and has looked very poor every time he's drawn it.
Yeah, but drawing is not what he wants to do. He wants to be in the deck most of the time, so you can tutor for it on 2 with an Eldritch Evolution, but just looking pretty rancid here. You're going to have an attack 4-8.
We have a Wrenn and 6 to finish off a wall that blocks here.
Perhaps we do, but the Wall Root is going to jump in front of the Omnath to prevent some damage. Yorion flies, so it's going to come in easily. We'll see if the Wrenn comes down to finish off a Wall Roots, but not really integral, not very scary. Counterspell protecting from Court of Calling.
At this point, with all these fetch lands and Omnath, Chase can just Teferi bounce Yorion every turn and draw a bunch of extra cards.
Yeah, it's not quite a hard block, but it is a lot of advantage every turn, and it's very hard to break this kind of pseudo chain. We saw a lot of Yorion flicker effects when it was in standard, chain effects that could bounce it with Charming Prince, and you created these walls of card advantage that normal decks just weren't able to handle. And here we see the Black-Green Yawgmoth deck just kind of struggling in the face of all this raw interaction and card advantage. Yorion recast off the Omnath mana, gonna blink the Teferi, the Abundant Growth, and the Omnath, draw 2 more cards, read that to Teferi, and a Gritful.
Yeah, gonna check his hand, make sure he doesn't want to do anything else before he goes to the end step to resolve the Yorion trigger. Get all the stuff back, draw a couple more cards, probably go to the cleanup step.
Yeah, I think he even has a discard, might be up at 8 cards now.
I don't think I've ever seen Chase Swick with fewer than 4 cards in his hand.
Alright, discarding Beseiju. Won't need that one too much here. We'll see if Kyle Hodar wants to pack it in after this draw. We'll see if he draws anything. Taps 1, plays a Thoughtseize, and there we see Thoughtseize and a Veil of Summer.
Oh my god.
Insult to injury, and Kyle Hodar.
Yeah, you can't keep playing after that.
Yeah, just a tough match for Kyle Hodar, and well navigated and well played. Chase Wick is going to be your winner here in our RCQ. First and second place both cashing in their ticket to DreamHack in November, but the champion taking home $500 for his effort, and well played.
Yeah, 7-0-1 record here for Chase Swick in the tournament. The one draw being intentional in round 6 of the Swiss. So a clean sweep here for him. Dominating performance with
no
4
losses.
colors. Yeah.
That's crazy.
A day after 4 color looked like it was solved, at least in this local metagame. None of the players piloting it making the top 8. Chase comes back and says, you know what? You better not forget about it.
Yeah.